Hello, my name is Alex. Alex Black. Nice to meet you. And I have to say, before recently, my life was pretty cool. But recently, I suppose it's become a little bit more cool. There are some ups and downs to it. But I suppose there are ups and downs in anyone's life. I am a fairly young nature provisionist. Basically, I spend most of my time trying to make sure that people aren't trying to give the shaft to Mother Nature. And you'd be surprised how busy I tend to be. I mean, the sheer number of people who just don't care. Well, it's hard to even fathom counting it. A lot of my time, I spend organizing protests, cleanups, natural preservation acts, and talking to lawyers about ensuring that our natural environment stays our natural environment, and keeping big business off of land inhabited by endangered species and things like that. Because believe it or not, those trees make our air. And air is sort of important. We need that. Along with protecting all of those species that no one seems to care about. Everyone gets all butthurt when I organize a protest to protect an endangered species of squirrel, not realizing how important a squirrel can be to the ecological balance of anything. To them, it's just a squirrel. Oh, well, we got lots of squirrels around here, people always say. What's the use in it? Well, dum-dum, that specific squirrel happens to be the primary predator of about a dozen different forms of insect that frequent the area. They destroy the natural habitat of the squirrels die out, and now the insects have no natural predators. And so their population explodes. The next thing you know, there are thousands of people barking and complaining, "Oh, our homes are overrun with this very poisonous kind of spider. Whatever will we do? How could the government have allowed this to happen? They're everywhere." Well, once again, dum-dum. That's why we had the squirrels. The squirrels ate the spiders. The spiders don't overrun your homes. That's how nature works. Everything's a balance. Everything, no matter how inconvenient you find it, is sort of necessary. You disturb the balance, you get bad results. That's how it works, man. And yet, no matter how many times these kind of things happen, human beings just don't seem to learn our lesson. Everything's about new apartment complexes, building the next baseball or football field. Ugh, it's agonizingly painful to watch. But as of recent, I've collected it's sort of a mixed situation. She's kind of my girlfriend, but also sort of a coworker who helps me deal with all this nonsense that I have to put up with. To be honest, I never really had much time to look for a girlfriend until one sort of just dropped into my lap. It all started when I was doing a natural survey, keeping track of endangered species within wild habitats. Specifically, this one was in one of our national forests. North American silver wolf. Beautiful animals. I was tracking a small pack of them, trying to get accurate numbers on this pack's population. So there I was, based on the GPS tracking units that we had placed on them. The pack was dead ahead. I had found the area that they were currently using as a den, and was trying to quietly make my approach. I needed to see how many of them had had pups, and how many pups there were. Believe it or not, this is actually my off time. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but I spend my off time helping preserve the prosperity of endangered species. You can tell me I'm a workaholic some other time. I was just cresting over a slight ridge and making my way through some shrubbery to see if I could get a clear view of the pack, when suddenly there was a bright flash of light and sound. I heard the voice of yelling from a woman. as I looked to the side to see a bright swirl of rainbow lights and what looked like a tear in space, just floating there in the air, ripping itself open. Beyond it, what looked like, well, an acid trip. It was some kind of forest, except none of the trees looked normal. Many of them had bright, colorful leaves that were countless different colors. One tree would be red, the next a vibrant yellow, and the leaves seemed to cascade light. Sparkles shimmered through the air as 100 different vibrant forms of amazing plant life were scattered about everywhere. Plants I'd never seen before, as suddenly that tear in space glowed a bright red as the yelling got louder, and with no explanation, warning, or anything else, suddenly someone came flying out of that portal. Before I could even really try to assess what in the world was going on, I felt myself tackled, beginning to roll down the hill, as someone was clinging to me, as I fumbled my way through the tall grass and brush, which, luckily for us, made the trip a lot less painful than it would have been had it been sheer rock, which was definitely a possibility with the geography around here. As we made it to the bottom of the slope, and I hit my back with a thud, somewhat knocking the air out of me. For just a moment, I groaned a bit as I looked up on top of me to find a vibrant green set of eyes staring down at me. They even glowed, the eyes themselves affixed to a beautiful face. It was definitely a woman, by the looks of it about my age. Absolutely gorgeous features. And the strange part being the exceptionally long, pointy ears extending from her head. Long, colorful, flowing green wings seemed to extend from her back, like the wings of a butterfly, except they were clear. You could see through them, and they had this sort of glowy sheen to them, and green sparkles that seemed to emanate from them. And I'd have to say the most overwhelming thing about the entire situation was that she was naked. Very, very naked, and very, very on top of me, as she seemed to look down at me curiously, while the gaze that I returned to her was more astonishment, bewilderment, and complete and utter panic. "Well, that's strange," she said, looking down at me. "What a strange creature you are. What's wrong with your ears? They're so small," she said, reaching down and grabbing one of my ears, giving it a small tug. There's nothing wrong with my ears. My ears are fine." "Oh, so they're supposed to be like that? Oh, I see you're wearing clothes. Are you one of those races that like those?" "Well, I suppose you'd have to be. Personally, us fairies don't get it. They look so uncomfortable. Why would you ever wear them?" "Fairy?" I said, looking up to her in surprise, embarrassment, and bewilderment. Same as before, just a little bit more intense, having her simply verify what my brain was already starting to tell me. "You're a fairy." "Well, yes, of course I am. You act as if you've never seen a fairy before." "I haven't seen a fairy before. I don't know anyone who's seen a fairy before." "What? How is that? I mean, seriously, we're everywhere in the Fey realm. Quite frankly, I find your statement puzzling, almost insulting. The Fey realm? I don't know where you think you are, but you're definitely not there." "What? What do you mean I'm not in the Fey realm?" she said as she began to look about, starting to seem concerned. No, she said, her green hair wafting about, seeming to float with a slight green glow as she looked around frantically, peering up to the hill that we had just tumbled down, and seeing the rip in reality, as it seemed to seal itself shut. "No! No!" she said as her wings fluttered for a moment, suddenly lifting her off the ground. As in a streak of green light, she propelled herself to the top of the hill, towards the location of the tear, extending her hands as green light seemed to swirl out from them, reaching into the tear, or what was left of it. It was barely there at all anymore, and as she extended her hands, the green light emanating from them swirling around what remained of the tear. Its shrinking started to slow. "No, no, stay open! Stay open! Open up!" she exclaimed, as more and more green light flowed from her hands, as somehow she seemed to be trying to reopen that tear, the light continuing to get brighter, brighter. However, by the looks of it, she was starting to get tired, beads of sweat starting to roll off her forehead, and the light beginning to dim. "Open!" she exclaimed with a look of worry on her face, as the light propelling itself from her hands dimmed down to naught, and the sealing of the fissure continued until it dissipated altogether, fading out of reality, as the woman looked more than mildly upset. "No, this is not happening. It's those stupid trolls' fault, chasing me through the woods. Just happened to be my luck that I ran smack into a reality tear. Of all things. I mean, what are the odds? Ugh, I have to be the most unlucky fairy ever. I mean, where did it even lead to?" she said as she stared down at the ground below her, before getting a look of realization on her face, quickly looking back over to me, who was finally pulling myself off the ground, still captivated with this exchange between her and the portal, and the whole fairy thing in general. "You know, don't you?" she said, looking down to me, as with a flutter of those wings and a shimmer of sparkles, she bolted down in my direction, swooping me off my feet, holding me by my shirt. "All right, Buster, get talking. Where am I?" You're, in a national park," I said, staring down below me at the 15 foot of empty space between me and the ground, as her wings fluttered about. "What kind of world is national park?" No, the national park is a place in my world. This is Earth." "Earth? What kind of world is Earth? And what are you?" Well, since you were nice enough to tell me you're a fairy, I suppose I shouldn't have a problem telling you that I'm a human." "A human? Oh no, this isn't happening!" she exclaimed, beginning to look more and more worried, as she lowered me to the ground, placing me gently on my feet. "Ugh, I'm in the human world. Ew. I've heard there's almost no magic here at all. No wonder I couldn't keep the portal open. Oh no, what if I start losing my powers? How am I supposed to get back? This is not happening. This is not happening," she said frantically. As I looked to her, not knowing what else to do, I tried to be comforting. I'm not sure how you get back. To be honest, I really didn't believe that you existed. Well, that being fairies in general. Here, we think all that sort of stuff is, well, make-believe. But if you're stranded here, I don't know how much use I could be. But if you want, I could help you. Well, at least as much help as I can offer. Honestly, if you have magic powers, I'm not sure how much help it would be. But I am willing. And what thinks What makes you think I trust you, human? I've heard about you humans. Untrustworthy, conniving, backstabbing, greedy. Don't think that we don't have our fairy tales about you humans. The tale of the fairy who had her wings stolen by the greedy man who wanted to fly, of being kept in cages and used for our fairy dust as eternal prisoners of the greed of man. I know all about you humans. You don't fool me, she said, leering down at me suspiciously, with a scowl on her face. And that is how I met my girlfriend. Her name is Mixie. And believe it or not, the relationship actually does eventually become positive. But that's going to take a little bit more time to explain. That is, if you feel like sticking around for the story.